So Albertan Oil Sands CEO John McKenzie was talking about the Canadian carbon tax and Canada being the only country, oil producing country that has a carbon tax. I think it's the only country that has a carbon tax, and how it makes Canada uncompetitive essentially. So what he was saying was, and I'll post a link in the description below so you can see the article and the video. But he was saying that in order to make a carbon tax successful, is that it'd have to be applied by all the countries at the same time, so that everybody has the same amount of reduced competitiveness. So in other words, it's not an issue of competitiveness. You're just penalizing like human life, essentially. Like when you're saying cutting carbon, cutting a person's access to cheap energy, so they consume less energy, consume less food, and all that. You're truncating human economic development is actually what it really is. It's not even really environmental. A lot of these people that advocate for this live in mansions and fly jets and etc. But anyway, so the other point I want to make about this is that Canada, specifically Eastern Canada, this is like Ottawa, make policies that really shoot themselves in both feet, right? Alberta is the one province that actually pays more into the system than it gets back. A lot of, let's say, agriculture and obviously oil production, two very important aspects of Canadian economy, and their economic integration with the United States. Of course, there's other aspects like the auto manufacturers in Ontario, and other things, other natural resources that come out of Canada. You would think that the people in Ottawa would look at this and probably treat Alberta a lot better, right? A lot nicer than that. It's kind of like I have a handful of customers, and I got one that really makes a lot of money for me. Of course, I'm going to be a little nicer to that customer. I would show a degree of respect because my philosophy, I take care of people who take care of me. But this is like lost on Canada. Not only is it fallen into the egalitarian black hole and all the mess that it has created politically and domestically for itself, but also economically, making themselves totally uncompetitive. You would think that, especially given the situation in the world today, you would take a good hard look and say, okay, what do we need to do? We have a collapsing population. We have a huge immigrant population that that's rubbing elbows. You got a crime surge. You have the standard of living that has fallen drastically in the last 20 years in Canada. What would we have to do to better this situation? Where do we apply infrastructure? What do we need to deregulate? We have all these oligarchies in Canada where that's part of the problem why they have higher prices up there. But anyway, that's another topic. But it's like they have the same problem in Ottawa as that we do here in Washington, D.C. We call Washington, D.C. as the Versailles on the Potomac. And I think Ottawa is the Versailles on the St. Lawrence. They're just detached from reality. I mean, you're not, you're in a situation more than ever that human beings need to integrate themselves with reality. They need to come clean and look at the facts and then act accordingly, act rationally. But that's sure as heck not what Canada is doing.